Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 9th of March of 2026. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the Middle East. During the previous 24 hours we received lots of very interesting updates. And probably the most important one is that the US Navy, the coalition, struck at least 3 Iranian vessels in the Persian Gulf, 2 of them anchored off the coast of Bandar Lengeh and the other at the Bangor Kong. So according to this article, 3 vessels were attacked in the area of these cities on the Iranian side of the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz. Later we received several videos that confirmed these attacks. For example, in this video we can see the territory around the city of Bandar Abbas, or maybe somewhere here. Here we can see smoke rising over the Iranian territory of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, and the most important is here we can see lots of vessels and lots of tankers that might be hit in the future. In this video we can see exactly the moments when the Iranian ship was attacked in the area of the Bandar Abbas port area. As you can see, as a result of attack, the vessel was completely destroyed without any chances to save it. Later, more precisely somewhere at the same time, we received lots of very interesting updates from the area of the island of Hark. Here we can see the island, and this is the most important island for the entire export infrastructure of Iran. And here we can see an article that, according to information we have, at least 3 tankers being loaded up with oil or waiting to be loaded up with oil. So the article says that when Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, it closed it for every other Persian Gulf country, but its oil tankers passed through the strait without any problems. This picture shows at least that China continues to receive some oil from Iran despite ongoing war. So once again, according to this article, there were at least 3 tankers that were being loaded up with oil or waiting to be loaded. And later, a day later, 2 days later, we received the report that 3 tankers were destroyed in the area of Strait of Hormuz. So we see that currently neither the coalitions nor the Iranians are allowing anybody to enter the Persian Gulf or to quit this territory. Furthermore, we received another very interesting situation. The Iranians continue attacking oil infrastructure of the Persian Gulf states. During the previous 24 hours, we received additional updates about oil refineries and oil facilities around the city of Fujairah of the United Arab Emirates. Here we can see a oil terminal that was attacked by the Iranians. Here we can see a very big fire anomaly. Another important area that was attacked by the Iranians is the state of Bahrain. Here we can see this video where we can see the consequences of another attack. Another oil refinery was damaged and destroyed. So we see that both the coalitions and the Iranians are expanding the geography of their attacks. They used to attack just objects of military infrastructure. Now both sides are trying to attack, or at least to damage, objects of critical infrastructure that can force either the coalitions or the Iranians to accept the demands of the opposite side. But today we received another very interesting update that probably tells us that most likely in coming days the United States of America is going to shift their focus from this area towards another region. We see that something big is brewing in the Caribbean area. According to information we have, Cuba's power grid has collapsed, and here we can see a total collapse, a total blackout. So this is a satellite picture of the Caribbean Sea region. We see complete absence of power just in the area of the city of Gavan, and that's it. The entire island is covered with total and complete darkness, which means that the situation in the Cuba region is almost ready to start the next operation by the United States of America. But the thing is that most likely the United States of America will not be able to carry out both operations at the same time, so that is why most likely the Americans will shift their focus from the Middle East in the area of the Caribbean region, most likely. And maybe this is the reason why the United States of America asked the United Kingdom and France to bring additional aircraft carriers with the purpose to replace the US forces. So everything is possible, but obviously this is something that the Middle East East states are not interested in, because without the support of the United States of America, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait will suffer huge problems in coming days or even months, because the Iranians, as of the 9th of March of 2026, haven't been defeated completely. And if the United States of America shift their focus from this area to the Caribbean region, then this will create a situation when the Iranians will stand on their positions, and of course they will start strengthening their positions in front of these Persian Gulf states. Furthermore, we received the report that during the previous 24 hours, the Iranians launched a ballistic missile in the direction of Turkey, but the Turkish Air Defense Forces managed to bring this missile down. Furthermore, we received reports that the coalition of the United Kingdom, France, and Turkey are strengthening their positions and air defense positions around the island of Cyprus, in this area, trying to secure this territory against the Iranian missiles and ballistic missiles and drones as well. As for the Iran itself, during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos where we can see how the Iranians were continually launching missiles in the direction of the Middle East states, in the direction of the Persian Gulf state, and so on. Of course, the Iranians use less missiles in comparison with the beginning of the conflict, but we see that they still have possibilities to launch them. So let's wait and see what is going to happen next. But one thing is clear, that both the prices for oil will continue growing, and most likely we'll see a limited ground operation, most likely in the area of the island by the name of Khark. Most likely the United States of America will try to establish complete control over this island and to force the Iranians to fall back from this territory, and this control over this island can be announced by the United States of America as a major victory, because the Iranians can export their oil just only through this island, and this island supplies and supports about 90% of the entire Iranian export. Without this oil, the Iranians will not be able to export anything. And if the United States of America establish complete control over this island, then the Americans will be able to probably dictate their demands and to start the negotiation process. And this operation might happen very soon, because once again, the situation, a very bad and critical situation in the Caribbean region, is brewing. Now let's move to Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of important updates. The most important thing is that the Ukrainians established a small, let's call it like this, record in this conflict. During the previous days, the Ukrainians launched the biggest number of drones deep inside of the territory of Russia. So the Russians counted more than 750 drones launched by the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians were attacking in the northern direction, the Ukrainians were attacking in the southern direction, and the Ukrainians were attacking in the direction of the central Russia. Several sources calculated the routes of attacks that were carried out by the Ukrainians during the previous week, and this map was published by different pro-Ukrainian sources, where we can see the destinations of Ukraine's attack. As you can see, mainly the Ukrainians were concentrated in the southern regions, because there is a city of Novorossiysk. We are talking about this settlement, and this is probably the last stronghold for the Russian fleet. The Russians have all their fleet right exactly in this area, including the Caliber carriers. So the Ukrainians were completely concentrated on this area just with one purpose: to deal and to destroy the Russian fleet and the Russian Caliber carriers, because the Russian Caliber carriers have made lots of problems and have made lots of damages to the Ukrainian infrastructure since the beginning of the special military operation. And currently we see that this is a primary task for the Armed Forces Ukraine, number one, to destroy the rest of the Russian fleet, and the most important, to destroy the Caliber carriers, or at least to force the Russians to redeploy these Caliber carriers further in the southeastern direction, probably towards the city of Sochi, but the city of Novorossiysk is the only city that has more or less reliable infrastructure for the military vessels and military ships. Furthermore, according to this map, the Ukrainians were attacking in the direction of the Kapustin Yar test site. That's the Russians used to test their Oreshnik missile system. Furthermore, the Ukrainians were attacking in the direction of the central part of Russia, where the Russians concentrated their main plants and main factories that they used to produce missiles, fuel for missiles, and many other different important military equipment that the Russians used in the conflict with Ukraine. So we see that the Ukrainians are increasing the number of missiles and drones they use. Tomorrow we will discuss a few more videos. According to the latest updates, the Ukrainians during the previous days managed to destroy several Russian air defense radars or something like this. Another important update we received during the previous 24 hours, according to information we have, the Russians attacked the Snake Island, which is located in the Odessa region. So this map was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and according to this map, the Russians used Tu-160 strategic aviation, or probably some of the strategic aviation aircrafts. The Russians began flying from the Bryansk region. The Russians began their flight somewhere from this area. The Russians moved along the border with Ukraine in the southern direction, and then the Russians launched missiles, according to this map, somewhere from the area of the Black Sea. So this is the place where the Russians launched their missiles, and the Russians were using supersonic cruise missiles of Ha-22-32 type. And somewhere from this area, the Russian hypersonic missiles began moving in the northwestern direction with the purpose to attack the Snake Island. So we are talking about this territory. Most likely the Russians attacked this island because the Russians discovered that the Ukrainians were planning probably some military operation against objects of military infrastructure on the territory of Crimea, and maybe the Ukrainians were planning to attack the southern part of the Russian Federation or some vessels with some specific weapon. So that is why the Russians use supersonic vessels, supersonic missiles, with the purpose not to give a chance, even a single chance, to the Ukrainian forces on the territory of this island to carry out any mission successfully. As of the end of the 9th of March, we still haven't received anything that can confirm what the Russians destroyed and what kind of plans the Russians managed to ruin. So let's wait and see what is going to happen next, because most likely the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will give us additional updates about this. As for the previous 24 hours, the Russians were mainly concentrated on the gas infrastructure of Ukraine. During the previous night, we received this video where we can see how Russians were attacking this this gas facility that the Ukrainians used to produce gas. As a result of attack, the Russians managed to deal significant damage to this facility, maybe even to destroy it. The Ukrainian authorities confirmed that the territory was damaged heavily. Furthermore, we have this satellite picture where we can see that up to 50% of this facility was covered with huge fire. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very important changes. And first, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, where the Russians continue offensive operation in the direction of the city of Orekhov. And as you can see, since the beginning of this month, lots of updates were recorded in this area. The Russians are keeping advancing in the western Zaporozhye direction, the western Orekhov direction. The Russians are attacking from the south, the city of Orekhov. As you can see, lots of icons were recorded. And of course, the Russians are keeping advancing from the east. And as for the eastern direction, eastern Zaporozhye direction, we have small changes. Pro-Ukrainian sources added additional gray zone, telling us that the Russians are moving further towards the settlement by the name of Gulyai-Polskaya. So, and that's it as for this territory. As for the northern Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything that can confirm that Ukrainians continued their offensive operation. Now let's talk about the Dnipropetrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, several sources confirmed that the Russians are about to break through Ukraine's defense and that the Russians are approaching the settlements of Sergeyevka. The clashes for this village may start very soon. The Russians will try to answer the settlement from the southeast. Also, the Russians are about to finish the battle for the settlement by the name of Novopodgorodnya, which is located along the railways towards the settlement of Mizhova. And with this settlement, the Russians most likely will continue offensive operation further in the direction of Mezhovo. First, they will try to take under control the settlement of Kolona, Mezhovo and Raipolye. If Ukrainians lose control over Mezhovo, this can lead to a very huge problems through the entire Dnipropetrovsk direction. Furthermore, it seems that in coming days, the Russians will confirm complete control over the settlement of Grishna. During the previous 24 hours, we received additional videos of how Russians were attacking villages behind the settlement of Grishna. As for the current situation, I would like to remind you that 2 days ago or 3 days ago, pro-Ukrainian sources colored the village of Grishna completely as a gray zone, which means that the Russians are very close to finish the battle for this territory. Let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Konstantinovka. During the previous 24 hours, the map has been adjusted significantly. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. The Russians improved their positions between the villages of Dovga, Balka and Ilinka by taking under control these facilities. This information was provided by pro-Russian sources. Furthermore, another pro-Russian source confirmed that the Russians improved their position significantly in the eastern parts of the village of Vilenka. So these are the changes on the ground. These territories used to be considered as territories under complete Ukraine control, but now these territories being colored under Russian control as a gray zone when talking about our map, and the Russians improved their positions along TO 516 road in the southern part of the city. So despite the fact that Ukrainians are showing huge resistance in this area, we see that the Russians are breaking through the Ukraine's defenses, and the Russians are going to keep advancing further in the direction of the central part of Konstantinovka. Now we are at the most important part of the battle for the city. It's something like a turning point. The most important thing for Russians is to establish complete control over this territory of the city of Konstantinovka. This is going to be something like a critical mass of the city that will allow the Russians to keep concentrating their forces and building up their units in this area with the purpose to carry out a final push with the purpose to establish complete control over the settlement itself. As for the Slaviansk direction, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to capture the settlement of Holubivka. Based on the report published by pro-Russian sources, we adjusted the map. Furthermore, pro-Ukrainian sources also colored the territory and added additional gray zone in this region. As for the northern directions, northern Slaviansk direction, during the previous 24 hours, a very important video was published from the area of Stara Karavan. In this video, we can see how the Russians were attacking positions of the armored forces of Ukraine in the area of the village with TOS flamethrower system. So which means that the Russians brought this flamethrower system very close to the line of combat contact, and most likely in coming days the Russians will try to attack in this direction with the purpose to establish complete control over these villages of Stara Karavan and Brusovka. If Russians take these villages under control, the Ukrainians, the contingent of the armored forces of Ukraine in the area of the city of Liman, will lose several supply lines that they use for logistic purposes. As for the northern directions, during the previous 24 hours, the most important update was published from the area of the city of Kharkiv. The Russians managed to discover position of a HIMARS launching system in this area, and as a result of attack, the HIMARS system was completely destroyed. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye-bye.